I am packing to leave my island. What have I for my efforts, for my ruminations on the beach? What answers or solutions have I found for my life? I have a few shells in my pocket, a few clues, only a few. When I think back to my first days here, I realize how greedily I collected. My pockets bulged with wet shells, the damp sand clinging to their crevices. The beach was covered with beautiful shells, and I could not let one go by unnoticed. I couldn't even walk head up looking out to sea, for fear of missing something precious at my feet. The collector walks with blinders on. He sees nothing but the prize. In fact, the acquisitive instinct is incompatible with true appreciation of beauty. But after all the pockets were stretched and damp, and the bookcase shelves filled and the window ledges covered, I began to drop my acquisitiveness. I began to discard from my possessions, to select. One cannot collect all the beautiful shells on the beach. One can collect only a few, and they are more beautiful if they are few. A few shells. Island living has been a lens through which to examine my own life in the North. I must keep my lens when I go back. Little by little, one's holiday vision tends to fade. I must remember to see with island eyes. The shells will remind me. They must be my island eyes.
Good evening. I'm Captain Brian Holloway, and on behalf of the Captiva Island Historical Society's Board of Directors, welcome to Anne Morrow and More. I would like to thank those involved in this evening's event, our events committee. Show your hands, our event staff. Okay, thank you. And also thank Ken Sneeden, award-winning producer, who tonight is helping us look and sound amazing. And a very special thank you to our actress, Lisa Reardon. This evening is sponsored by the Dave Jensen Memorial Fund. Donations made this fund will allow us to continue an annual event in Dave's name. So a heartfelt thank you to our donors. We invite you to stay after our event to mingle and meet some of our directors. And if you're interested, ask us how you can have a more active role in the Historical Society. Also, if you'd like to purchase a copy of the book, Gift from the Sea, you'll find Rebecca at the back of the room with Macintosh books, and you can get a book from her. I'm sure you won't want to miss even one word of tonight's program. So now is a good time for us all to make sure our cell phones are silenced. All right, and now a message from our archivist, Queenie Biglione.
Hi, I'm Queenie, the archivist for the Captiva Island Historical Society. It's hard to believe it's been so long ago that many of us sat in your very same location and celebrated the 50th and then the 60th anniversaries of Anne Morrow Lindbergh's Gift from the Sea. Now we're here to celebrate the book's 70th anniversary, and I thank you for joining us this evening. When I proposed this program, Anne Morrow and More, I imagined the images I would choose from our archives would reflect what mankind was experiencing a few years prior to the 1955 release of the book. My intention was to tickle your imagination. Which, if any, of those events influenced Anne Morrow's writing? But it was shortly after diving into just a few of our archives that I realized how many of today's images are just as relevant as those from 70 years ago. In Gift from the Sea, Mrs. Lindbergh has written, "Perhaps we never appreciate the here and now until it is challenged, as it is beginning to be today, even in America." Those are timeless words, and they called for timeless images. So it's because of this, tonight you'll see images selected from our archives from years before and after the book's first release. And there's one more thing to note. The passages are read from chapters in subsequent order, that is, except for how we begin our program. because, in my opinion, the final paragraph of the last chapter gives us the best place to start. Chapter 8, The Beach at My Back. The waves echo behind me. Patience, faith, openness is what the sea has to teach. Simplicity, solitude, intermittency. But there are other beaches to explore. There are more shells to find. This is only a beginning.
January 1941. During dinner at their New Jersey home, Anne Morrow Lindbergh mentioned to their close friend, Jim Newton, how she wished she and her husband Charles could get away for a few days, as Charles was bone tired. Newton subsequently rented a cottage for Charles and Anne in Florida on Captiva Island, where the Lindberghs stayed for 5 days before embarking on a borrowed 30-foot cabin cruiser to a 100-mile stretch below Everglades City, which was virtually uninhabited and still is today. Many have asked and much speculation has been made as to where the Lindberghs stayed when visiting Captiva. To date, there has been no definitive answer. In reply to an inquiry from Captiva librarian Betty Robb in 1978, Jim Newton wrote, "Last week when I saw Mrs. Lindbergh in Connecticut, she showed me your letter of the 27th, and we tried to review quickly the cottages you speak of. It is hard for her unless she ever gets down this way to say exactly, but I hope to get over in the next month or two, and will certainly try to help you on it. One thing that I am quite certain in my mind is that the Bixby cottage was probably not among those she rented. We are grateful for all you do and hope to see you soon. With best regards, sincerely, Jim Newton." We do know after their first visit in 1940, the Lindberghs returned several times to Captiva, together and also Anne on her own. It was in the early 1950s, Anne spent 2 weeks alone in a modest cottage on her family property in coastal New England, and from inspiration gathered from time spent on Captiva Island, she penned "Gift from the Sea."
I began these pages for myself in order to think out my own particular pattern of living, my own individual balance of life, work, and human relationships. And since I think best with a pencil in my hand, I started naturally to write. Chapter 1, The Beach. The beach is not a place to work, to read, write, or think. I should have remembered that from other years. Too warm, too damp, too soft for any real mental discipline or sharp flights of spirit. One never learns. Hopefully one carries down the faded straw bag, lumpy with books, clean paper, long overdue unanswered letters, freshly sharpened pencils, lists, and good intentions. The books remain unread. The freshly pencils break their points, and the pads rest smooth and unblemished as the cloudless sky. No reading, no writing, no thoughts, even. At least not at first. At first, the tired body takes over completely. Rollers on the beach, wind in the pine, the slow flapping of herons across the sand dunes drown out the hectic rhythms of city and suburb, timetables and schedules. One falls under their spell, relaxes, stretches out prone. One becomes, in fact, like the element on which one lies, flattened by the sea, bare, open, empty as the beach, erased by today's tides of all yesterday's scribbling. And then, some morning in the second week, the mind wakes, comes to life again, not in the city sense, no, but beach-wise. It begins to drift, to play, to turn over in gentle, careless rolls, like those lazy waves on the beach. One never knows what chance treasures these easy, unconscious rollers may toss up on the smooth, white sands of the conscious mind. But it must not be sought for, or, heaven forbid, dug for. To dig for treasures shows not only impatience and greed, but lack of faith. Patience, patience, patience is what the sea teaches. One should lie empty, open, choiceless as a beach, waiting for a gift from the sea. Chapter 2, Channeled Whelk. The shell in my hand is deserted. It once housed a whelk, a snail-like creature, and then, temporarily, after the death of its first occupant, a little hermit crab, who has now run away, leaving his tracks behind him like a delicate vine on the sand. He ran away and left me his shell. It was once a protection for him. Had it become an encumbrance? Why did he run away? Did he hope to find a better home, a better mode of living? I too have run away, I realize now. I have shed the shell of my life for these few weeks of vacation. But his shell, it is simple, it is bare, it is beautiful. Small only the size of my thumb, its architecture is perfect down to its final detail. My shell is not like this, I think. How untidy it has become. Blurred with moss, knobby with barnacles, its shape is hardly recognizable anymore. The shape of my life today starts with a family. I have a husband, 5 children, and a home just beyond the suburbs of New York. I also have a craft, writing, and therefore work I want to pursue. I want to give and take from my children and husband, to share with friends and community, to carry out my obligations to man and to the world, as a woman, as an artist, as a citizen. But I want first of all, in fact, as an end to these others' desires, to be at peace with myself. I mean to lead a simple life, to choose a simple shell I can carry easily, like a hermit crab. But I do not. I find that my frame of life does not foster simplicity. The life I have chosen as wife and mother entrains a whole caravan of complications. For life today in America is based on the premise of ever-widening circles of contact and communication. My mind reels with it. What a circus act we women perform every day of our lives. With a new awareness, both painful and humorous, I begin to understand why the saints were rarely married women. I am convinced it has nothing inherently to do, as I once supposed, with chastity or children. It has to do primarily with distractions. What is the answer? There is no easy answer, no complete answer. I have only clues, shells from the sea. The bare beauty of the channeled whelk tells me that one answer, and perhaps a first step, is the simplification of life, in cutting out some of the distractions. One learns first of all in beach living the art of shedding, how little one can get along with, not how much. Physically shedding to begin with, which then mysteriously leads to other fields. Clothes first, and what a relief it is. Next, shelter. Here I live in a bare seashell of a cottage. No heat, no telephone, no plumbing to speak of, no hot water, a 2-burner oil stove, no gadgets to go wrong. No curtains. I do not need them for privacy. The pines around my home are enough protection. I am content. I love my seashell of a house. I wish I could live in it always. I wish I could transport it home. But I cannot. It will not hold a husband, 5 children, and the necessities and trappings of daily life. I can only carry back my little channeled whelk. Simplification of outward life is not enough. It is merely the outside. But I am starting with the outside. The final answer, I know, is always inside. Chapter 3, Moonshell. For a full day and 2 nights, I have been alone. I lay on the beach under the stars at night, alone. I made my breakfast, alone. I watched the gulls at the end of the pier dip and wheel and dive for the scraps I threw them. A morning's work at my desk, and then a late picnic lunch alone on the beach. I walked far down the beach, soothed by the rhythm of the waves, the sun on my bare back and legs, the wind and mist from the spray on my hair, into the waves and out like a sandpiper, and then home, drenched, drugged, reeling, full to the brim with my day alone. Solitude, says the moonshell, every person, especially every woman, should be alone sometime during the year, some part of each week and each day. We throw ourselves indiscriminately into committees and causes, not knowing how to feed the spirit. We try to muffle its demands in distractions. The world today does not understand, in either man or woman, the need to be alone. Mechanically, we have gained, especially in the last generation, but spiritually, we have, I think, unwittingly lost. In other times, women had in their lives more forces which centered them, whether or not they realized it, sources which nourished them, whether or not they consciously went to these springs. Nothing feeds the center so much as creative work, even humble kinds like cooking and sewing, baking bread, weaving cloths, putting up preserves, teaching and singing to children. Certain springs are tapped only when we are alone. The artist knows he must be alone to create, the writer to work out his thoughts, the musician to compose, the saint to pray. The church, too, has always been a great centering force for women. The church is still a great centering force for men and women, more needed than ever before, as its increasing membership shows. Moonshell, who named you? Some intuitive woman, I'd like to think. I shall give you another name, Island Shell. I cannot live forever on my island, but I can take you back to my desk in Connecticut. You will make me think with your smooth circles, winding inward to the tiny core of the island I lived on for a few weeks. You will remind me that unless I keep the island quality intact somewhere within me, I will have little to give my husband, my children, my friends, or the world at large. Chapter 4, Double Sunrise. This shell was a gift. I did not find it. It was handed to me by a friend. One does not often come across such a perfect double sunrise shell. Smooth, whole, unblemished shell. I wonder how its fragile perfection survived the breakers on the beach. It is unusual, yet it was given to me freely. People are like that here. Strangers smile at you on the beach, come up and offer you a shell for no reason, lightly, and then go by and leave you alone again. Nothing is demanded of you in payment, no social right expected, no tie established. People smile at you here, like children, sure that you will not rebuff them, that you will smile back. And you do, because you know it will involve nothing. The pure relationship, how beautiful it is, how easily it is damaged or weighed down with irrelevancies. Not even irrelevancies, just life itself. The accumulations of life and time. Every relationship seems simple at start. Two people listening to each other, two shells meeting each other, making one world between them. And then how swiftly, how inevitably, the perfect unity is invaded. The relationship changes. It becomes complicated, encumbered by its contact with the world. I believe this is true in most relationships, but it is the marriage relationship in which the changing pattern is shown up most clearly because it is the deepest one and the most arduous to maintain. Life must go on. That does not mean it was a waste of time to recreate for brief holiday periods together alone experiences. On the contrary, these one and only moments are both refreshing and rewarding. The race on the beach together renews one's youth like a dip in the sea. But we are no longer children. Life is not a beach. There is no pattern here for permanent return, only for refreshment. All living relationships are in process of change, of expansion, and must perpetually be building themselves new forms. But there is no single fixed form to express such a changing relationship. There are perhaps different forms for each successive stage. Different shells I might put in a row on my desk to suggest the different stages of marriage, or indeed in any relationship. My double sunrise shell comes first. It is a valid image for the first stage. Two flawless halves bound together with a single hinge, meeting each other at every point. The dawn of a new day spreading on each face. The sunrise shell has the eternal validity of all beautiful and fleeting things. Chapter 5, Oyster Bed. There are other shells to help me, to put in the row on my desk. Here's one I picked up yesterday. It's an oyster with small shells clinging to its humped back. It amuses me because it seems so much like my life at the moment. Like most women's lives in the middle years of marriage, it is untidy, spread out in all directions, heavily encrusted with accumulations, and in its living state, this one is empty and cast up by the sea, firmly embedded on its rock. Yes, I believe the oyster shell is a good one to express the middle years of marriage. It suggests the struggle of life itself. The oyster has fought to have that place on the rock to which it has fitted itself perfectly and to which it clings tenaciously. So most couples in the growing years of marriage struggle to achieve a place in the world. Here, the bonds of marriage are formed. It is the bond of romantic love which fasten the double sunrise shell, only one bond, one hinge. And if that fragile link is snapped in the storm, what will hold the halves to each other? In the oyster stage of marriage, romantic love is only one of the many bonds that make up the intricate and enduring web that two people have built together. I'm very fond of the oyster shell. It is humble, awkward, and ugly. Its form is not primarily beautiful, but functional. Sometimes I resent its burdens and excrescencies, but its tireless adaptability and tenacity draw my astonished admiration, and sometimes even my tears. I do not like to put it down. I will not want to leave it, but is it the permanent symbol of marriage? Should it, any more than the double sunrise shell, last forever? The tide of life recedes. The house with bulging sleeping porches and sheds begins little by little to empty. The children go away to school and then to marriage and lives of their own. Most people by middle age have attained or ceased to struggle to attain their place in the world. Perhaps someone will suggest this is the moment to go back to the simple, self-enclosed world of the sunrise shell. No, one cannot go back to the tightly closed world. One has grown too big, too many-sided for that rigidly symmetrical shell. Perhaps middle age is, or should be, a period of shedding shells, the shell of ambition, the shell of material accumulations and possessions, the shell of the ego. Perhaps one can shed at this stage in life as one sheds in beach living, one's pride, one's false ambitions, one's mask, one's armor. Perhaps one can, at last in middle age, if not earlier, be completely oneself. And what a liberation that would be. One might be free for growth of mind, heart, and talent, free at last for spiritual growth, free of the clamping sunrise shell. Beautiful as it was still a closed world one had to outgrow. And the time may come when, comfortable and adaptable as it is, one may outgrow even the oyster shell. Chapter 6, Argonauta. In speaking of the Argonauta, one might as well admit one has left the usual shell collections. A double sunrise shell, an oyster bed. These are common knowledge to most of us. We recognize them, we know about them. They are part of our daily life and the lives of others around us. But with this rare and delicate vessel, we have left the well-tracked beaches of the proven facts and experiences. We are adventuring in the chartless seas of imagination. Perhaps both men and women in America may hunger in our material, outward, active, masculine culture for the supposedly feminine qualities of heart, mind, and spirit. Qualities which are actually neither masculine or feminine, but simply human qualities that have been neglected. It is growth along these lines that will make us whole and will enable the individual to become world to himself. This is a beautiful image but who can achieve it in actual life? But theory precedes exploration. We must use any signpost that exists to help us through the wilderness, for we are actually pioneers trying to find a new path through the maze of tradition, convention, and dogma. On this island, I have had such a glimpse into the life of the Argonauta. After my week alone, I have had a week of living with my sister. I will take from it one day. I shall examine it, set it before me as I have set the shells on my desk. I shall turn it around like a shell, testing and analyzing its good points. The relation of two sisters is not that of a man and a woman, but it can illustrate the essence of relationships. The light shed by any good relationship illuminates all relationships. Perhaps this is the most important thing for me to take back from beach living. Simply the memory that each cycle of the tide is valid. Each cycle of the wave is valid. Each cycle of a relationship is valid. And my shells, I can sweep them into my pocket. They are only there to remind me that the sea recedes and returns eternally. Chapter 7, A Few Shells. Here on this island, I have space. There are not too many activities or things or people, and each one I find is significant, set apart in the frame of sufficient time and space. There are all kinds of experiences on this island, but not too many. There are all kinds of people, but not too many. The simplicity of life forces me into physical as well as intellectual or social activity. I have no car, so I bicycle for my supplies and my mail. When it is cold, I collect driftwood for my fireplace and chop it up too. I swim instead of taking hot baths. I bury my garbage instead of having it removed by a truck. And when I cannot write a poem, I bake biscuits and feel just as pleased. I see people here that I would not see at home, people who are removed from me by age or occupation. My island selects for me people who are very different from me. The stranger who turns out to be, in the frame of sufficient time and space, invariably interesting and enriching. I discover here what everyone has experienced on an ocean voyage, or a long train ride, or a temporary seclusion in a small village. Out of the welter of life, a few people are selected for us by accident of temporary confinement. In the same circle, we never would have chosen these neighbors. Life chose them for us. But thrown together on this island of living, we stretch to understand each other and are invigorated by the stretching.
All right, a well-deserved round of applause for Anne, Lisa Reardon. Also just want to send out a special thanks to Queenie. Queenie orchestrated and wrote all this. So a big shout out to her. Even though she's in Italy, she's always close to our hearts here in Captiva. So a big round of applause for Queenie. So thank you for joining us. If you're so moved, you'll find a donation envelopes at the door. We look forward to greeting you at our next event, and be sure to grab a program on your way out, and good night.
Thank you. you.